Welcome to Daily Variety, your daily dose of news and analysis for entertainment industry insiders. It's Thursday, March 5th, 2026. I'm your host, Cynthia Littleton. I am co-editor-in-chief of Variety alongside Ramin Satuda. I'm in LA, he's in New York, and Variety has reporters around the world covering the business of entertainment. In today's episode, we'll hear from Variety's Mark Malkin on how the somber mood in Hollywood will affect this year's Oscar week celebrations leading up to the Academy Awards on March 15th. And Variety's Ethan Schoenfeld joins us to paint a colorful picture of all that he observed while attending a Baywatch open casting call last month. But before we get to that, here are a few headlines just in this morning that you need to know. Shauna Thomas has exited her post as executive producer of CBS Mornings after 5 years at the helm. This also comes on the heels of the news that Gayle King will remain an anchor of the CBS Morning Show, as she has been since 2011. Television Academy Chief Chris Abrego has tapped the 4 bold-faced names who will make up the Academy's executive committee. Uzo Aduba, Apple TV's Matt Chernis, Netflix's Jenny Howe, and Disney's Deborah O'Connell will help Abrego steer the Academy for the next 2 years. Netflix has acquired Interpositive, an AI startup founded by Ben Affleck. Interpositive focuses on creating AI tools for filmmakers. The Big N does have some cash on hand after all, although financial details were not disclosed. All of these stories and so much more can be found on Variety.com right now. And now it's time for conversations with Variety journalists about news and trends in show business. We'll hear from Mark Malkin for a preview of next week's Oscars celebrations in the lead-up to the big night on March 15th. As Mark reports, the revelry this year is likely to be muted by real-world events at home and abroad. Mark Malkin, thank you so much for joining me.
So good to be here.
You are getting ready for one of your marathon weeks. Next week will be Oscar week, leading into the big show on March 15th. Mark, you've been breaking bits and pieces on Variety.com about the elements of the ceremony that will air on ABC. Tell me, what are you gathering in terms of the theme, the image that they want to promote for Hollywood right now?
There's a few things we're hearing. We're hearing, that there are meetings going on about talking about Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, depending on where the world is on March 15th. What kind of red carpet will it be? What kind of production will it be on stage? Of course, they have their plans to make it a big glamorous night, but they do have to be able to pivot sort of at the last minute. But one segment that is always part of the Oscar, it really doesn't depend on what's going on in the world, is the In Memoriam segment. It's done different ways, different years. Sometimes it's one singer singing and you're seeing clips and headshots of people who have passed. Well, this year, 2025 saw the passing of Robert Redford, and the Academy right now is in talks with none other than Barbra Streisand to perform at some point during the In Memoriam segment as a tribute to Robert Redford. As we know, her co-star of the iconic, legendary movie, The Way We Were. Right now, though, they don't know if it's going to be a bunch of different artists performing In Memoriam, or will it just be Barbara by herself? I have a feeling the sort of energy that I'm getting is that she'll sing a little part and then it'll be other artists.
That song breaks my heart every time. That will be a powerful moment for sure.
It will. The last time Barbara performed at the Oscars was in 2013, singing The Way We Were for the late composer and one of her closest collaborators and friends, Marvin Hamlisch. So this would be her return in 13 years. When you look back at the history of the Oscars have never been canceled outright. They've been postponed for things like the assassination of Martin Luther King, the assassination attempt on Ronald Reagan. We certainly don't know what it's going to look like on March 15th. The other detail that I exclusively reported today is not only are Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal reuniting for the In Memoriam segment as a tribute to Rob Reiner, but the details that I received today from sources is that Billy Crystal will be doing the talking about Rob Reiner, and that Meg Ryan will join other stars of Rob Reiner films on stage as Billy is talking.
That will be an audience of people in the business that knew him, and many of them worked with him. And it will be painful, but it also might bring us a somewhat kind of closure for people to really salute Rob Reiner. There's no question that the global geopolitical situation is creating some tension and some uncertainty, but closer to home, there is so much drama, so much turmoil going on in the industry. The Paramount Warner Brothers Discovery merger has raised so many questions. The plan to merge with Netflix also raised a million questions. But just as people were getting used to the idea of Netflix and Warner Brothers, then the tables turned, and now it's Paramount and Warner Brothers. And that, we know that there's going to be a lot of jobs will go by the wayside at a time when there aren't a lot of people in the traditional entertainment business hiring. So it's a moment of transition.
Obviously, a lot of my time is spent living on a red carpet. And this last year has been a really interesting time on the red carpet. You definitely feel there is a different energy. And I think it's everything like what you just said, the combination of whether it's geopolitics, consolidation, layoffs. It is heavy on everyone's minds. If you haven't been laid off, you're thinking about, are you going to be the next one to be laid off? So it really is creating this really fine line, this balance of being able to celebrate the accomplishments of the past year while also respecting and having grace about people who cannot celebrate right now because times are tough and they've been laid off or their spouse has been laid off. And the Academy has a very tricky job of balancing that celebration while acknowledging, like you said, the industry, it's in upheaval.
It is not easy. I ran into Academy President Lynette Howell Taylor at the Producers Guild Awards over the weekend, and she told me that the plan was to keep it about the movies. Anything else, Mark, that you're hearing about the Oscars? Anything that you're excited to check out in the Oscar week leading up to it?
All of this, trying to find the balance of celebration versus the real world realities. The party scene next week is in full force. CAA, WME, fashion houses like Dior, magazines like Vanity Fair, magazine, they're all having their parties. Disney is having a pre-Oscar party. Chanel will have their very iconic pre-Oscar party on Saturday night before the Oscars. So right now, the party scene is happening. I'm really interested. How does it all sort of play out? Because every conversation you have in this town now turns to the shakeups, the consolidation, the mergers, and then geopolitics. So, that said, the invitations have been sent out. And again, like we said, depending on what happens next week, we'll see if these parties are scaled back to sort of respect what is going on in the world or not.
Thank you, Mark, for being on the case. We are grateful to have a seasoned veteran because you pick up on the nuances because you've done this once or twice before. So I just hope you get your rest and take your vitamins because it's going to be a busy week.
It sure will.
And now we turn to Ethan Schoenfeld, one of Variety's most intrepid young reporters. He attended an open casting call for Fox's reboot of Baywatch last month in Marina del Rey, and he brought us back a hell of a story. Ethan Schoenfeld, intrepid reporter extraordinaire, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, your story on the open casting call for Baywatch that was held last month in Marina del Rey was one of the best, most enterprising features that we've run in a long time. I want to ask you about what inspired it and your I want to ask you about what inspired it and your experience, but I just want to set the tone. I'm going to read your lead. Usually I don't like to spoil the story for listeners, but in this case, this lead is so good. It's up there with Frank Sinatra Has a Cold. Fanfare, please. You simply cannot wear a red Speedo in the rain. If that sentence doesn't make you want to read more, I don't know what will. Ethan, tell us, what was the spark of interest for you attending this open casting call? Have you secretly harbored a desire to be on Baywatch for all of your life?
To answer your last question, the answer is no. But if you read the story you might assume differently. The inspiration behind the story was we got an email from Fox about this open casting call. And I have a knack for some of these weirder stories where I seem to always find myself, in a movie theater at 5 a.m. interviewing people, watching Dune or sleeping over at the Times Square AMC, putting myself through these situations where you're talking with normal people, not necessarily celebrities or publicists or managers or agents. And so anytime there's an opportunity to do something like that, I will try my best to do it. So I'm based in New York. I was coming into LA for a bachelor party that weekend, and I ended up moving my flight a few days earlier so that I could cover this casting call. And I had never seen Baywatch. I watched some Baywatch in anticipation of this story, but I really didn't understand or grasp the phenomenon that it was until I got there.
When you first got there, when did the outline of the story start to take shape in your head?
The story gets very meta. So I would not say that the story really took shape until the very end of my day there, when I actually snuck into a auditions holding room and sort of pretended to be somebody auditioning. But at the beginning of the day, when I was outside at the beach with all of these contestants trying to get a part on the show, I would talk to people, some people who were actors and had jobs in Hollywood. And then other people who I talked to, a mother and a daughter who flew in from Colorado with zero acting experience and they were fans of Baywatch. So they just wanted a chance to have a small part on the reboot. I talked to one woman who actually won the Greek version of The Bachelor. And so that, I got some colorful quotes from people like that. She told me that she's been acting for a while and she was always told, "You're too blonde, your boobs are too big." And so she said, "But now this is finally the part for me."
I'm always interested in how everyday people stake their hopes and dreams on getting to something in entertainment. You see it a lot at conferences, people that spend a fortune to attend something in the hopes of shaking the hand of a producer that could change their life. Did you feel that sense of ambition and anticipation among these people?
Something that struck me was how positive everybody was and how nice everybody was. You talk to these actors who send out 200 auditions and they're lucky if they just hear back. And so when I was talking to the actor at the end of the story, he was just so happy to be there. And a lot of the people I talked to were speaking about how it's just such a blessing to be able to live out your dreams. And every day is a blessing. And, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. There is like a motivational through line, with a lot of these people for sure.
It's heartening because, as you well know, a lot of the headlines right now are doom and gloom for Hollywood, for the entertainment industry, for the world itself. What I enjoyed reading your story was just feeling people so hopeful and eager, and that Hollywood and the mythos that is wrapped up in that word still really inspires people.
The narrative around the reboot is certainly that it's like a big bet on Los Angeles, that the show, there had been attempts to reboot Baywatch throughout the years, and those were always going to end up shooting in South Africa or Australia. None of them ever came together. But with this show, they secured a $21 million tax incentive. They're shooting right on Venice Beach. The network and the city are both touting it as this project that could bring back jobs to LA, that could be a very sunny, very optimistic show. A thing I heard a lot from the producers is there's so much going on in the world, and, people want to sit on the couch and watch people living out their fantasies.
And running down the beach, let's be real. They call these auditions cattle calls for a reason. What were your observations about the people that were organizing and doing the logistics of stand here, now you group go over here? Were they brusque with people?
It seemed pretty gentle. You remember there was a lot of press there. They treated this as not only a legitimate casting call where they were looking for roles from series regulars to extras, but also it was a promotional event. They had several different step-in repeats. They had the talent available for interviews. There were a lot of journalists. So that might have played into that. I also, when I did sneak into the holding room, I sat next to one of the curtains where they were holding these auditions. And so I was listening to some of the actors read their lines. And one of the things I noticed was you did not hear a no in the room. It was very much, "Thank you very much. We really appreciate you coming in." And so I talked to a lot of people that came out and were really excited in the story.
How many people in total? Was it a couple of hundred?
There were 2,000 people auditioning. They said that they received 14,000 submissions, which was people sending in their reels, their headshots online. And then from that, they took 2,000.
Well, Ethan, I did not read all of the stories that came out of that, but I know that there is not one better than what you did with this experience. Listeners, it is so good. Get your Baywatch on and run to Variety.com and read this piece. Let me ask you, Ethan, if you could do an open casting call for any show that's on now, any show in history, what would you choose?
My first thought was Saturday Night Live, just because there's such a lore around the auditions, and they've done documentaries where they show some of these auditions, and people like Kevin Hart and Stephen Colbert auditioned and did not get the part. So it'd be interesting to see an open casting call where you have a lot of people who are potentially very famous people in the future.
That's a good one. Well, Ethan, I cannot wait for you to set your sights on another enterprising feature story. Thank you so much for delivering this terrific read.
Thank you, Cynthia.
As we close out today's episode, here's a few things we're watching for. James Van Der Beek would have turned 49 this coming Saturday, March 8th. To mark the occasion, Samsung TV Plus's Fast Channel platform will serve up a marathon of all 6 seasons of Dawson's Creek that day. May the Beak rest in peace. The trailer is out today for Lorne, the new documentary on Saturday Night Live creator and leader Lorne Michaels. The focus features film from documentarian Morgan Neville, bows in theaters on April 17th. April 17th is also the premiere date for another documentary of note. The latest skeptical cryptocurrency project from actor Ben McKenzie is a documentary, Everyone is Lying to You for Money. It's based on the book, Money, Cryptocurrency, Casino Capitalism, and the Golden Age of Fraud that McKenzie co-wrote with Jacob Silberman. Indie distributor The Forge has North American distribution rights to the documentary. We love to hear from our listeners, so please send thoughts, gripes, and other feedback about Daily Variety to podcasts@variety.com. Before we go, congrats to filmmaker Peter Jackson. He'll be awarded an honorary Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival on May 12th. Past honorary Palme d'Or winners include Jodie Foster, Meryl Streep, Robert De Niro, and Tom Cruise. Thanks for listening. This episode was written and reported by me, Cynthia Littleton, with contributions from Mark Malkin and Ethan Schanfeld. Sticks, Nicks, Hick, Picks. Please leave us a review at the podcast platform of your choice, and please tune in Monday for another episode of Daily Variety.